There they are. What's up, everybody? We are back again, making each other better with Walt and
Sheekia.
What's up? Hey, listen, we told you guys that we're going to try to be a lot more consistent in regards to this platform, and we want to just once again appreciate you guys for staying with us. So it's late night, and so we're going to be having a discussion topic tonight in regards to accountability.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, what are your thoughts on being accountable? Because for me, I think this is one of the most imperative things that we need to be able to have more dialogue and conversations about in all aspects of life, whether it's at home, in the workplace, out in wherever we are. Accountability is one of the most important things. And so, and when we talk about accountable, which is somewhat of an easy word, but what we're saying is that, are you there and doing the things that you necessarily need to do? Are you taking responsibility for the actions that you put out there, the things that you say, the places you go? Are you looking and being that man or woman in the mirror and saying, hey, it is on me? So what are your thoughts on it? And let's just chop it up a little bit.
Yeah, you know what? Normally when we come on live in this space, we have already had a heartfelt conversation about, what we lay out for you guys. And I truly feel that in any relationship, if you do not have a husband, a friend, a boss, a mentor, a coach that's holding you accountable, you are going to drop the ball many times. But not only are you going to drop the ball, you're not going to have a guide. You're not going to have a plan to navigate you back to what is right. When people hold us accountable, they're not being mean. They're not being judgmental. They're not thinking that they are better than the other person. When people hold us accountable, they want the best for us. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, when it hurts our flesh, it hurts our emotion when someone says, hey, you said you were going to be on time and this is your third time being late. Instead of taking an offense, account for the times you've been late. Well, you know what? I was late Tuesday. I was late Wednesday. And now I'm late again Friday. What kind of plan can we put together so that I can get better?
But that's true. But let's go even deeper. I mean, let's think about this for a moment. Why is it hard oftentimes for us to accept responsibility, being accountable? What is it about us as people, the nature of man in society today, to be able to say, hey, I am wanting or not wanting to be accountable for the actions that I take? Because I think that is something that we need to really wrestle with. We need to think about that, because there are benefits to being accountable, and then there are bad things that offset not being accountable as well.
Well, you know what? For the person who's holding someone accountable, one of the things that I would say we need to think about is, are we being hypocritical?
Oh, yeah.
Because it is very difficult for a person to account, even though they're wrong. Mm-hmm. It's very difficult for a person to account for something when it's coming through a person who is doing the same exact thing. And it's like you want this particular person to be held accountable, but you're not holding yourself accountable. So the first thing I would say is make sure that you took that speck out of your own eye before you go to take the log out of your brother's eye. And so I think a large part of what's happening, even in society on so many levels, we hear people saying, cancel this person, cancel this store, well, uphold this. And when we look into their lives, they're being hypocritical. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to follow a hypocritical person.
Absolutely. That's one of my biggest pet peeves. And I can only, first of all, look at myself in the mirror. That's one of the biggest things for me, that I try to make sure that I'm not being someone that's hypocritical, really. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, I have to be that man in the mirror and look in the mirror and say, hey, what are you doing? Are you being this way? You're upset with this person about that, but look in the mirror first and foremost. And I think oftentimes that's something that we don't do. It's very imperative that we, first of all, look in the mirror. Because when we can do that, like you say, you can take that speck out of your eye, and now you're able to help someone else to direct them. But oftentimes, I call it, and pay attention to this word because I made this word up, but it's really called the Passover syndrome. And what I mean by that, S-I-N drum, right? Sin drum, the Passover syndrome. What happens is that, I don't know if you guys understand from the biblical times during the Israelites when they were dealing with Pharaoh, and all of a sudden God put all the plagues and Moses began to deliver them. And on that last plague, he ended up bringing the death angel and to that whole place, really, right? But all of the Israelites had to put the blood over the post. And so because of that, the death angel passed over them and they were saved. They were able to have their children to be saved as well. Oftentimes what I see is that we have a Passover syndrome to where we look at the next issue, the next problem, or what that person did on the second hand, but we don't go back to the very first sin, the very first negative action, because it was so easy to look at what someone else did. And that comes from my perspective of just being really accountable. Looking at yourself and say, okay, that person might have did something wrong and they might have done it the wrong way, but what did I do? Or what did that person do from the very first forefront to cause that? And if not, that's what I call the Passover syndrome. And we got to do a much better job at that.
Yeah, absolutely. So hypocritical, could cause someone not to acknowledge or be accountable. The Passover syndrome. And I would say pride. When you think about when you think about Saul and him being disobedient and the light being shined on his disobedience when he was supposed to destroy everything from the Amalekites, and he didn't do it. He came up with this excuse, well, I was gonna save this little bit to worship God, and he lost a position because he, number one, he wasn't obedient, and then he was not accountable. He did not account for what he did. He did not repent. He made excuses for what he did. And long story short, he found himself on top of his own sword. All right, versus David, who did something just as wrong. He was disobedient, and his disobedience led him to actually take somebody's life by putting Bathsheba's husband on the front line. But then when he was faced with his sin and was told the consequence of his sin, he repented. And God said, this is a man after my own heart.
Vital, very, very vital and important, really. We can apply these principles at home. Oftentimes, even as parents, I think this is very key and vital that we make sure that we implement and just show our kids of how they have to be responsible for their actions. We all have to be responsible for our actions as well. This is why we call it being personal, having personal responsibility, really, right? And there are benefits, again, to that. Like you mentioned, David repented, God forgave him, and he was able to be considered the man that's after God's own heart, even after he made a mistake. Can you imagine if he lifted himself up with pride and said, no, I'm good, I don't want to repent? At that point, you're cutting off the blessings, you're cutting off what God ultimately wants to get you to that next place. And so I think it's really important, imperative that we recognize the place of, what did I do wrong, right? That's something that's going to help relationships oftentimes and many times when you're in relationships with individuals. You and I, we have to talk about things. We have to say, you know what, I did do that. I could have done a better job with that.
Absolutely.
You did this, these are some things that you could have done better. That helps the relationship mend itself a whole lot more faster.
Absolutely.
And it causes us to even become a lot more closer. But when we don't take personal responsibility, people begin to go further apart.
Yeah, and I think for those people who have taken account, you have repented, your focus cannot be solely on restoration with the other person. We want restoration, but some people are not going to restore the relationship because they don't trust you. Maybe they're afraid of you. Maybe you did something so bad that they can forgive you, but they don't want to have anything else to do with you. Your main focus is making sure that you understand the principles of God. And he said that when you repent, when you take accountability, responsibility for what you've done, you come to me with that, and I am faithful to forgive you. Your mother, your father, your wife, your husband, your children, they may not carry that same mindset of, okay, let's reconcile and let's eat dinner tomorrow. It is a process with humans, more than likely. God instantly forgives you. He instantly throw your sin in the sea of forgetfulness. And I think it's hard for people to take accountability because much of the time we are in fear of what we're going to lose. If I take accountability, if I tell the truth about this, you're going to leave me for sure. If I tell the truth about this, you're never going to want to talk to me again. So I think for the most part, accountability is good, but try not to put yourself in a position to sin or disappoint or deceive people. That's even more powerful.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about that, really. That's powerful, really. Not putting yourself in that position on the forefront. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, because we do have a choice. We do have a choice. And there's an innate ability to sense when we're doing something wrong.
Do you think there are warnings in advance? Do you believe that God gives us these warnings in advance, really?
Yeah.
They're out there. I think, that's one of the things of knowing God and knowing how gracious he is. There are warning signs. There are red flags that we're able to see on the forefront that can obviously keep us from having to be in that position of having to repent or take responsibility. I think about even David when he was on that balcony, right? There were some things that if he could have resisted, or he could have, those were warning signs. If he would have paid attention to what was coming, that would have kept him from even going down that place to where he had to end up eventually repenting to God, really. And so there are warning signs often in our own lives that we gotta pay attention to. God is trying to show us, give us moments and opportunities if we can just slow down and pay attention. What am I about to do? Where am I going right now? Will this particular place I'm going or dealing with this particular individual, will this person or situation put me in a place to where I will eventually have to take responsibility for?
Right. You want to take responsibility on behalf of great things, impactful things, inspirational acts. So, but we're human and we drop the ball. And that's why we're in this space right now. If you've done something that has disappointed someone, if you've done something that has disappointed you, and ultimately, if you've done something and you know it was not along the lines of biblical principles, we have to account. The accuser of the brethren, which is Satan, he's going to continue to remind you of what you've done. But the Holy Spirit does not condemn. He convicts us. And once you've straightened that record with God, you don't have to prove anything to anyone, especially the enemy.
Yeah.
Because you have people sulking. You have people in a pity party box because they have done wrong. And when we do wrong purposely, that is not a mistake. That's a bad decision. When we back into a garbage can, that's a mistake. When we bump into a wall, that's a mistake. But when we knowingly get into somebody's inbox and start having conversations with them, knowing that we're married, when we steal something from someone, knowing that it is not ours, that's no longer a mistake. That is a bad decision, and we have to call it what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. So we just want to encourage you all to just really think about, look in the mirror and just take more responsibility. I'm sure many of you all are. and doing that. But just think on the perspective of just being responsible, taking accountability for the actions that we take, and even think about it on the forefront. Because if you can think about it on the forefront and being responsible, owning up to certain things that you have done, and also God has given us responsibility. He's given us this role as men and women and putting us in certain positions to be accountable. Being accountable is really a good thing. Being accountable as a man, it feels good to feel like I'm in charge and these are things that God has blessed me with. So I am going to be accountable for what God has given me.
Right.
Really.
And being accountable to others.
Oh, yeah.
We are not in this together. We need to have people around us that will hold us to a higher standard.
Oh, yeah.
And so when you look at social media, right, you can tell the people who are not being held to a higher standard. Because one minute they're having conversations like this, and the next minute is F you, your mama, your daddy, and everybody else. And so there's no righteous consistency. You see many people, because we're monetized, right? You see many people not being consistent in what they believe, what they stand for, because they are looking more for clicks, likes, and checks versus being a true positive impact and remaining committed to the call that is on their life. So don't get caught up on inconsistent pages. Don't get caught up with individuals who are not being held accountable. And it is a scary situation when somebody is their own boss. It is a scary situation when someone says, I don't have to answer to my husband. You know, as wives, I have to answer to my husband, and I'm proud to answer to him. I'm proud if I am doing, or if I'm portraying, or I'm showing off an image that is not becoming. It is an honor to have a strong leader as a husband to be able to say, hey, Sheik, you need to think about this, okay? You need to think about what you just said, or you need to think about how you just reacted. That is one of the highest honors. Yeah. That shows that he is walking in the purpose that God has set for him to walk in. When I see women who are married and they want to be more of a city girl than a godly girl, I can tell their husbands are not holding them accountable. When I see them with single friends and you can't tell which one is married, you can tell their husbands are not holding them accountable, and you can tell their friends are not holding them accountable. And that is a very dangerous space to be in.
All right, now bring me up to speed on this city girl. What's this city girl thing? What's this city girl? What's up with a city girl? What is that?
I thought
city
I told
girl.
you. Well,
city
you know,
girl.
city girl is a mindset, but I think it was also a group from Miami with these rapper girls that was, hot and dressed in a certain way, and they want the money, they want the fame, they'll twerk on top of a refrigerator or whatever.
Those
right?
Are the city girls.
Those are the city girls.
Okay.
They're about money versus solid relationships. They're very worldly.
So these people, these city girls, to me sounds like there are people that are not responsible and accountable then.
No,
really?
Because their main goal is to get money, is to get men with money, is to live a life of me. Okay. Whatever I want to do, I'm the one that is in power. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because we are accountable to God. Yes. And so when you can live any kind of way and you can say anything out of your mouth without with no regard that God is looking, he is watching.
That's it.
And one day we will have to answer to him. That's even scarier than not upholding your husband.
Yeah. So this is why you guys are going to constantly hear me say many times, keep God in the conversation. Because when you do that, that means that there is somebody out there, someone who's supreme, that's looking down, that's holding you accountable. When we remove God, society's constantly trying to remove God out of the picture, and we got to keep God in the conversation.
Absolutely.
Because he is the one that will ultimately keep us accountable. And when we're not being accountable, there are going to be hell to pay for these types of actions, really. And so keep God in the conversation. Be accountable. It is a good thing. It is a blessed thing to be accountable. God gave Adam a role of being accountable, be fruitful, multiply, guard, till the land. That is something that God's saying, hey man, I want you to be responsible. I want you to be accountable. I want you to protect this place. As a football player, as an athlete, we had to be accountable. We had to be accountable to coaches. We had to be accountable of showing up on time. We had to be accountable for doing what we need to do out on the football field. It is a good thing. And when you are in an atmosphere or around other individuals that are looking to be just as accountable as you, man, the sky is the limit. That team is going to thrive. That mission is going to get to where it needs to be. So it's a positive thing, guys, ladies, to be accountable. So whenever you're going around in society today and someone is challenging you, hey, you can do better. I have higher expectations of you in this area. It's not a bad thing. It is a good thing. That means that they're seeing something bigger and better on the inside of you. So receive it. Receive it. Those are expectations. Keep the bar high. Don't lower the bar. Because the lower you bring the bar, more negative things come in. Keep it up high. All right?
Absolutely. What are maybe a couple of ways we can be accountable? Like what action plan can we start implementing to exercise our accountability muscle?
I think just conversing, talking to each other in regards to, hey, you know what? This is how I'm feeling today. Or you remember I mentioned to you today, hey, make sure you remind me of this today. I know I got to get on top of it. So that means talking and having conversations with someone else. Sometimes there's pride kick in, or because for whatever reason, it could be because of fear. We don't want to bring other people in the picture. And it's a very important thing to do. So I think that's one of the things that is good for us to just be able to communicate with one another.
So be open to communication. I would say even before you can be open to communication, you have to have a humble and contrite spirit. If you think you know it all, if you think you're the only righteous being and you can't do no wrong, it is going to be very difficult for a person to share with you growth areas that's going to make your life easier and ultimately better. So making sure that you have a sense of humility will make the conversation a whole lot easier.
That's huge, being humble. You're not going to put yourself in a position to be able to be taken serious, really, and others are not going to take you serious as well because you're not even in a position of being responsible and accountable.
Right. I mean, just imagine that person that you say, well, hey, you know what? I think you could have done this different. You judging me? You ain't God. You ain't Jesus. You ain't holy. Remember what you did last year? When you have that type of response, it shows that you are fearful. It shows that you are prideful. And it shows that you have reached a level that life will have to teach you.
Yeah.
Life will then have to teach you if your pastor can't sit you down and say, hey, you're in the choir, okay? You are representing this church. But on your page, you are twerking. On this page, you are cursing. You are acting and behaving inappropriately. And you can't live like that on social media, present yourself like that on social media, then pick up the microphone and sing praise and worship. Instead of saying you have church hurt, you should be praising the pastor. You should be saying thank you, because not only is he looking out for your image, he's looking out for your soul. So when you have humility quiets, listens, eat the meat, spit out the bones, and make the necessary changes.
I've looked at over the past month or so, looking at the numerous of cop videos. And, I like to watch those just to study. And this is why I call it the Passover syndrome, because often, many times when you look at those videos, that people always are they overlook the crime or whatever they've done, but then they go to the next issue of what the cop have done wrong. And I even look at the comments oftentimes, and no one looks at, okay, you got caught speeding. Okay, maybe your mouth was a little too negative. there are a lot of things on the forefront that's totally overlooked. You're not being accountable to, okay, you know what? I didn't have my seatbelt on, whatever you want to call it. And so we totally skip that aspect of it, negating the accountability part of it, and then we go on to the next issue. And so if we could just study being on the very forefront and being accountable at the very beginning, I think it'll take us a long way, and it'll cause many people not to cause situations to escalate. Yeah.
You know, and if we're about to close, I want to speak to the parents. You know, don't ever feel that your authority over your children undermine your responsibility to take account for your actions as a parent. There are many kids or young people who leave their house with the mindset after graduation, I'm never returning, not because they don't love their parents, not because they don't appreciate what you've done, but because you have not been accountable as a parent, false promises, not having or creating a structure, not being respectful, not being responsible. Sometimes we feel like our kids get what they get because we're the parent. And that's a sad place or sad mindset to have, because our children did not ask to be here. So when we're divorcing, and when we are jumping from boyfriend, girlfriend to and this guy's staying over, or this woman we're with, we're not realizing that that's not normal. That's not how God created families, right? And so there's something in our children that knows this is not normal for me to be over grandmama house, auntie house, staying over cousin house, friend house, while my mom or my dad go do whatever they're doing. And we don't take accountability. For example, I had to apologize to my son because I go on my little Ross hauls, and sometimes I am doing things overly, right? I'm going over the time, and he's doing his homework a little later than he should. And so I had to say, you know what? I take accountability, because you wouldn't have to stay up. You may have to stay up late, but you may have a less hour to work if I had some self-discipline, self-control, and did what I needed to do. That will do wonders for your child, because now you've just become human to them. Yeah. But we as parents, sometimes you listen, you do, I pay the bills, and that is not going to keep your child connected if that's how you behave. It's going to be superficial.
Yeah, because they're always watching as well. And so if you're, like you're saying, if you are taking personal responsibility right in front of them, that helps them also to lower their guardrail down and really say, okay, I need to now take responsibility as well. So we have to always exercise the very thing that we're telling our children and kids and other people to do as well. Yeah. And that means you're not being hypocritical, right?
Absolutely.
All right. Kelly Cole, what's up, my guy? Good to see you on there. Thanks for joining us, man. This guy right here, I love this brother. Love what he's doing. Thank you guys for joining in, man. Drop some comments, leave a like, go ahead and share this. We're just getting started, and we just wanted to make sure that we always having discussions, and so we want to make sure that we are committed to being a lot more present for you all on making each other better with Walt and Sheekia. And also, just thanks for just continuing to join us and support us, really. We love you guys. Until then, you have anything else?
Hey, remember our discussion tonight. Go make someone accountable, or just be accountable to yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, guys. We love you guys. Be blessed. Go to our YouTube. Eventually, we'll download this on there, and we'll be putting a lot of other things up. We love you guys. Be blessed. Until then, we will see you next time. Making each other better with Walt and
Sheekia.
All right, guys. Love you.